Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Well, it's a day before elections in the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning. Well, just in case you're wondering, area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory. Very much like a local government elections in the States. Welcome, Amaupe Ogun Yusuf.
Yeah, but there are going to be very interesting scenarios because there are several directives flying. So there's a little bit of confusion in terms of what's happening, should there be movement. But we'll come to that in a moment. But of equal concern, huge concern, is 2025 budget. Well, so I know there's been several narratives as to this. It seems to be a norm these days, even though sometimes it escapes the radar on the funding of the budget. When ministries have certain budgets allocated to them, most times they don't get monies released to them. And then it just goes on like that for years. I remember former speaker, I'm trying to remember his name now. It was the gentleman from Ogun State.
Dimeji
Bankole, where he did say they have, I think it was Jared that was president at the time. He said they have hundreds of millions of, millions of unspent budgetary allocation. And yet, so what they try to do is, when all of that happens, they just find something, let's just put the money to make sure you don't retire funds. But in this case, there are funds allocated for budget. So beyond the underfunding, certain funds were not even released at all. So I didn't believe it. It sounded a little strange and odd. It was difficult to settle when the Minister of Finance, coordinating minister, was speaking about, well, in terms of the funds that were not released, several people here cannot hear it. And I thought, are we running? Is that what we're doing now?
Germany, the more we look, the less we see these days. You know, when it comes to Nigeria's budget, a lot of people have been asking questions. It looks like there's plenty of abracadabra going on. You know, first, well, you have to ask, which budget are we operating? In 2025, we had a situation where 2023, 2024, and 2025 budget were being operated concurrently. And people were wondering, what exactly is going on here? How is this happening? And in August last year, we had a situation where the president told us that we've met the revenue target for this year. That's for 2025. And people were saying, if you've met the revenue target, why are we borrowing so much? Is it that we've met the revenue target and, excuse me, and somehow we still do not have enough money? Or what exactly is going on? Because the people have also raised questions as to how much we're really borrowing. I mean, and how much we're spending on debt servicing. Now, this is 2026. The 2026 budget is up for consideration. As a result of it, lawmakers are now looking at 2025 to see how the 2025 budget performed. And they're saying that it hasn't performed well at all, particularly the capital component of the 2025 budget. So yesterday, you had senators gathered, I can't remember the name of the committee now, gathered in one of their committee rooms asking questions of the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, as well as some of the government revenue-generating agencies, such as the NRS, the Nigeria Revenue Service. It used to be the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So pertinent questions, and in fairness to the senators, the questions which they asked are questions that Nigerians genuinely want answers for, because they believe that it will provide clarity. They want to know why certain aspects of the budget were not funded, in spite of specific borrowings being done to fund certain parts of this budget. And the answer they got was quite underwhelming. We heard from the Minister of Finance telling them that, look, the answer, some of you in this room, you know, almost saying that some of the senators know the answer, but also saying that he's happy to provide the answers if they have a smaller number of people. My thinking is that he wanted the media out of the room. And then we must also remind the Coordinating Minister of the Economy that when the senators ask this question, it is not just for their own consumption. They ask on behalf of Nigerians, and we also have a right to know. That's why the media is in the room. If this is supposed to be a budget for all of Nigeria, we cannot have a situation where there is abracadabra being done with regards to our budget. It's not something that is being done in the secret. It's an open document. This is what government intends to do. This is how much government intends to gets in terms of revenue. This is where he tends to get the deficit from. This is how he intends to finance the deficit. And then questions should be asked as to, were you able to meet the target? What percentage? What were the challenges? What can we do better in 2026? But it doesn't appear that we're ready to really put a light on what exactly is happening with our budget and our budgeting cycles, Chamberlain. But yeah. I think that Nigerians themselves can make up their minds what they make of this particular hearing when they listen to what it is.
In addition to that, I think that government needs to, and quickly too, change their mindsets. It is not business as usual. We have a new tax law in the country, and then there's several people who were not happy with it, but look, they have to do what they have to do. They've got to pay those taxes. And so if it's taxpayers' funds that funding and then going on with several of these activities, you are accountable to the people, and even the senators there were representing the people. So it does this narrative, this impression, this attitude that they carry on as though, well, it's just a few people here, so as if you're loading it over the people. That has got to change. So if you're insisting in comparing us with the global world in terms of what we need to do about taxation and funding, you can't pick and choose how that works. Even in those countries too, you could see that they are very much accountable to the people. That should be the attitude. That should be the body language, but in terms of narrative that we see of our public officers. You cannot expect people who work as hard as possible and then pay those taxes, which of course you know what happens if you fail to pay those taxes. You face the law, you face the music, and then you carry on as though, yeah, it doesn't matter, you could pay those out, but we will do what we have to do, or what we've been doing previously. You cannot keep going on that way. Anybody who is paying all of those funds can ask questions. Whether you consider them foolish or not, insofar as they are paying, they can ask whatever questions they want. And when they ask those questions, you've got to let them know. So this impression, and these are the things that Nigerians see where they ask you, well, why should I pay? What is the point? Why should I pay? If they keep using our funds this way, there's no accountability, it's not coming out. Why should we pay? Why? So look, let's let you listen to some of them first. Let's have a look.
Honorable Minister of Finance.
The National Assembly Budget Defense sessions continue with the appearance of the President Tinubu's economic team before the Senate Committee on Appropriations.
The expenditure of this year's budget, how do you view it?
The economy is growing at 4%, inflation is down, the exchange rate is stable, reserves are up. We are attracting investment.
Across the room in a no-holds-barred session, one key concern reverberated.
The recurring complaint is non-release. Almost zero implementation or performance. That is very sad.
Why is Nigeria an exception? And in spite of the failure of this centralized payment system, do you hope to change it, or do you want to stick to it?
As it stands, you have borrowed those money, and yet the evidence from all the FDAs is that those capital projects did not benefit from the borrowing. Why is it so?
There was a borrowing for capital approved, which is part of what you are saying, which was directly to go to certain capital projects. There's an explanation for that, which belongs, I think, in a smaller gathering of why something was committed and it hasn't arrived yet.
Lawmakers are apparently dissatisfied with his explanation, prompting the chairman to press on.
Honorable Minister, sir, why are we not funding 2025 budget? It's a topical question. So, Honorable Minister, can you speak directly to that? The NRS chairman, you have something to add to this?
Why is budget not being funded? And the answer is also in this room. It is what I think, by God's grace, we will correct this year. Budget funding comes from realistic budget. It's not in the quantum of the budget. It is in the amount you can carry out, and it is in how much can we realistically get from oil.
It's just a clear indication that we don't believe, or you don't have the full confidence of this 58.19 trillion budget.
No, that
so my question is this. I'm coming, sir. My question is this. Two things. One, the revenue you declare, is it for federation or for federal government? Let's speak to ourselves. Do we reduce this budget or we leave it the way it is? If we are not reducing, then you are telling us that you will meet the targets.
The Minister of State for Finance quickly provides assurances.
We had to have a stakeholder engagement today with all the permanent secretaries and the accounting officers of all the MDAs. The purpose of the briefing was to tell them that we were ready to start making payments and that we needed all the MDAs to upload their cash plan and whatever warrants that they had not uploaded before. So basically, as at today, all the payments for 2024 will start. That's outstanding payments for the capital.
There are evidently more questions than answers, as the session is subsequently dissolved into a closed-door meeting. Now, it's unclear whether or not the idea to make a budget reduction was widely embraced, but the economic team has assured that if certain assets were disposed of or used to reduce debt, the overall debt stock would reduce and future borrowing costs could decline. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to Sunrise ADS. Mr. Mondo Bani joins us this morning, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Special Advisor on Legal Matters to the President of the Senate. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Chamberlain, for having me. I don't know why you emphasize that.
Long time no see.
My sis.
The Senate is in the eye of the storm, so we have to emphasize
I have to emphasize it.
You guys
I should remove it.
You're putting me into trouble.
I cannot undo it. The gavel has already gone.
You have hit the gavel. Okay, go ahead.
So, tomorrow will be the FCT area council elections. We know that the FCT announced a walk-free, remember, a walk-free and a 10-hour restriction of movement ahead of that council elections.
So of didn't see it on time.
Well, so that's it.
This program might not have happened.
But you know, that's why on the roads of Abuja there seems to be some sort of confusion. What do they mean? Walk-free, then restriction of movement? Well, because, I mean, they said restriction of movement is from 8 p.m. today, Friday, up until, what, 6 p.m.?
Tomorrow.
Not even 6 a.m., 6 p.m. the next day. And then you're asking yourself, wait a minute. And then that press release, too, it just also talked about strict enforcement by the security agencies. Of course, you know how overzealous some security agencies can be. You know there are essential services, and so if these things are not expressly stated, in many cases you see some agencies overreaching themselves. But then in 2026, not even 25, 2026, should we still be having these kinds of announcements? You restrict for 10 hours at a time where, you know, the people are grappling with the vagaries of the economy. A lot of people live from hand to mouth. People earn their living, eke out a living on a daily basis. And so there's a huge cost implication for that restriction of movement. Well, the authorities may not know because, of course, in that cocoon that they are all in, they may not feel that particular impact. I know that maybe Mr. Bani might not equally feel it because he's also up there with the high and mighty, as it were. But in the light of all of this argument going back and forth about, the Electoral Act, which we will come to, shouldn't we, I mean, what do we have to do to erase it or impress upon the mindsets of the authorities there that, look, we shouldn't be having restriction of movement for elections. Other African countries, they have their elections, smooth smooth elections without stopping people's livelihoods. Everything at the moment appears to revolve around elections. And we make elections like a mainstream, like it's as if it's an economy. Ordinarily, this shouldn't be the case.
It all speaks about political maturity. Maybe we are not yet matured. Because if you watch developed economies when they are conducting their own election, people will just go to office, from office, they go to the polling unit, and then cast their vote and go back to work. You don't see any security on the road. You don't see all those unnecessary crises, that arise, within a territory, within a nation. But here, election is a very big business. But I said, into power, the issue of accountability and all that, the issue of desperation will remain there. Even if we do all the laws and do all the electronic transmission and voting, as long as desperation is in the minds of those who want to govern, they always do everything in order to create crises where there shouldn't be. So it's absolutely, it shows some level of for us to shut down the entire economy because we want to elect leaders. It should be something that is a primary responsibility, civic responsibility. You go with some level of joy, do it, and then go back home without any crisis, without any security, harassing you, without any problem whatsoever. That is what I think it should be. But because of our level of immaturity, that's why they also have to take those necessary steps in order to ensure that there is no unnecessary brouhaha, within the polity, because issue of security is key. We need to secure our lives. That's why the government also.
What kind of brouhaha would that?
What I'm saying, we don't want a situation where people start fighting, start killing themselves and all that, because the level of control will determine the level in terms of impact.
Is it not politicians that bring out the political thugs?
The thugs themselves, but they're not the citizens. The thugs, are they not citizens?
Yeah, but they're employed by politicians.
But they're citizens. You must agree they're citizens. Are they supposed to do the wrong thing? Are they not supposed to say, no, I'm not going to do this, I love this nation, we want to do the right thing?
Yeah, but they're equally doing the wrong thing, both of them, both the people who call them.
What I'm saying, don't exonerate the citizens. What we're saying is that both parties must agree that, look, this country deserves the best. And we must begin to do the right thing, including the citizen who is being employed as a thug. I'm not going to be employed.
Yeah, but if the guys don't call them, will they do the wrong thing?
So if the man refuses to answer the person who calls.
Yeah, but you have to start from the person who calls in the first place.
We also have to start with the person who answers the call. So I'm saying is both parties, don't exonerate any person. I'm not making an excuse for any person. I'm saying that both parties must see, we love this nation, we must do the right thing. You can't employ me. I won't like to answer. I would like to be part of it. Yes.
But what we've seen, because I remember there was a time a commissioner of police in Lagos, when certain thugs had been arrested, they were supposed to have been prosecuted, and the next thing, others came from somewhere. They had to release those people, and they go back into society. Nothing happened with impunity.
Why would the policeman, the police person you mentioned now, said, no, this person must be prosecuted because he has committed a crime?
Why would he say that he should be or he should not be?
He should be prosecuted. Why? What makes him not to say, look, this is the right thing, I must insist on it?
Well, you very well know that in many cases, if they insist, the next day
they lose the job.
They're out.
Gentlemen, before I would get into this, I would really like to inform citizens, residents of the FCT. I sincerely hope that you're registered to vote, because I want to also believe that part of the reason why this is done is to make sure that people come out to vote. You don't have any excuse on that day not to have, exercised your franchise. So let us hope that people will not view it as a public holiday, but will also see a reason to vote. But here's what the restriction of movement is going to be like. We hear that there's been a restriction of movement within the FCT from 8 p.m. today, which is a little disturbing because we know that
8 p.m. today?
Yes.
Starting from today. I thought it's tomorrow.
Abuja is usually alive on Friday night. We like to have a good time.
Wow.
8 p.m. of Friday, February 20 to 6 p.m. of Saturday. We're looking at almost 24 hours. As a matter of fact, we're looking at 22 hours of restriction of movement.
That's correct.
And they've told all security agencies are directed to ensure strict compliance with this directive. So this is for residents of the FCT. I want to think that it will exclude those on essential duties. So if you have very good reason to be out, by all means, take an ID card along and show your movement. But Some people will say this is a little excessive. Come on. I mean, 8 p.m. today. Oh, what are we restricting? Is it not like local government elections?
It is.
And we know how far-flung the FCT can be to move from one area to the other. I mean, moving from my own place to the heart of town takes at least some good, decent 30 minutes.
That's correct.
You know, so I'm just a little curious as to
why.
what exactly this is really meant to achieve, starting from Friday night.
And you know, if they restrict...
Or Friday evening. It's not even night.
And to make... People may not come out because you know how FCT is. You have to travel almost a distance.
Yes.
Before you get to where you have to
go.
So if there's no vehicular movements for a lot of them, it may be
they're stuck. They're stranded.
Maybe if they get a feedback, just as we are doing.
Who's going to get the feedback?
I'm talking about INEC. Is INEC? It's not INEC that do all this.
No, it's the FCT minister that is declaring this.
But we have not even done this like this even in national election. National election is from that day of election, not
the day before, right?
Yeah, it's a bit stringent.
This is almost a whole day.
A whole day.
A whole day, yeah.
22 hours.
That's 24. Well, almost 24 hours because 8 p.m. the day before till 6 p.m. the next day is 22 hours. Just 2 hours left and it will be 24 hours. So I'm just wondering what exactly.
We plead that the minister will take a look at this particular decision. Restricting movement for 22 hours because of a local government election, I think it's very restrictive, and it's not something that the president, will want, because there are those who depend on daily sales, in order to survive. So you deny them a whole day without any income.
Is this lawful?
Before you go and challenge in court, this thing would have been over. If it's something that is time for you to challenge this, is it constitutional? Is it legal? Is it legitimate? Does it make economic sense?
You're thinking, what do you think?
In my own thinking, I think that the minister is also listening at this. I think that it's a bit harsh. It's something that he should restrict to from tomorrow, not today, not tonight. And even if you want to restrict, it should be by 4 p.m. Should end by 5 p.m., not the 6.
So, if a citizen says this law is unlawful, it violates my rights, I will move, and he gets arrested, and the person sues.
No, if you get arrested, I won't advise any breach, because if a directive has been given, a good citizen will want to comply. But if you want to challenge it in court, you have a right to do that. But when you now say, look, government has made a pronouncement, I would rather observe it in breach. There are consequences, so I won't advise anyone to take laws into his hand. But what I would rather do is to plead, and say, look, the minister, this is the bit harsh. Look at it again. 22 hours because of a
So the thing is, it's not that we're encouraging people to take laws into their hands, because when the minister says, he's doing this, getting approval of the president to go ahead with this. Of course, you know how society works. There will be people who would need medical services, who may be rushing down. But when the police equally issues their own statements too, signed by the FCT public relations officer.
Well, just before you get to the police statement, I have to read that part again. Because it turns out that, from what I see, it says similarly. This is the part I'm reading now. Beg your pardon. I'm going to read two paragraphs. It says, at this juncture, with the approval of the President, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, I hereby declare Friday, February 20, 2026, as a work-free day to enable movement of residents to their various communities to participate in the elections. This is understanding the fact that, the FCT is really far-flung.
Beautiful.
So it's a work-free day. You are free to move to your communities.
Beautiful.
Similarly, the President has approved the restriction of movement within the FCT from 8 p.m. of Friday. So this is, all of this is done with the President's approval. So I'm a little curious as to understanding the dynamics. First, I'm curious as to understanding the dynamics. First, even the President will not be voting in the area council elections because we know for a fact that his polling booth is in Lagos.
It's in Ikoyi.
I know people, even the FCT minister who has said that anybody who does support him, they're not going to be supported. We know his polling booth is in Rivers. So it's very interesting elections that we have in the FCT where residents oftentimes are the ones who are largely involved. The local communities, they're largely involved. So people who work there or who are from there will most likely have to move there. Those kind of concessions have been given. I'm wondering where precisely this restriction applies. You know, is it going to be applying, moving from one locality to the other? Or is it for within the central city? It doesn't say specifically, but
where?
A lot of people are imagining that this should apply if you're moving across communities, you're moving across area councils. Not if you're moving within the same area council, for
to go
instance.
and cast your vote.
For instance.
Yeah, and then there are exceptions in all the rule. You know, there are those who may have medical issue.
Yeah.
And of course, they'll be on the road and all that. So I don't think anyone will arrest somebody who is not feeling well, you know, in order to go
you know this, you know how this country is.
Yeah, but even the medical personnel, how would they get to work?
Yeah, well, I know.
Unless they would have gotten
the social services. So the statement from the police command says the restriction duly accredited election officials. So
the question is, so you're assuming now that every essential service worker has a means of transport to get to work. That's what you're assuming.
Yeah,
so I'm saying
there are no buses.
Because the bus drivers will argue to essential service, aren't they?
They're not.
They're not?
I don't think they are. No, answer. Are they part?
By association. Because if you have to convey medical personnel, but of course you know that won't fly in this part of the world. So
Bolts and Uber drivers, you know, just saying, for instance, if you're taking someone to work, for instance, who's an essential service worker, would that not count as essential service?
Let them take a hard look again at this particular, you know, directive. They should take a look at it again. I mean, from 8 p.m. tonight till 6
the following day.
I know it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, well,
but they may have a reason. I don't know because they see more than we that are here. I mean,
what they see, Mr. Bai?
What is the police saying?
Security implication. I mean,
I think they're just repeating almost the same thing. With
the security, there may be security knowledge that the president has, alongside with the minister, and they have to. They won't say that openly, right? You know, so.
Well, to give them room to arrange.
I didn't say that. I don't know about.
Okay, but police's own is different. So police says their own is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, 6 a.m. the following morning, yeah?
Yes, this is what we're saying from the police.
So I think we obey the police on that.
No, the president has given is the police going to disobey the instruction from the president? So
where there is conflict, who supersedes?
That's the question.
To the
this is signed by the police public relations officer that the commissioner of police FCT command has announced a restriction of movement across FCT from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, 21st
They are the
February,
enforcers, so we obey the enforcers.
2026, in view of the scheduled area council elections.
We obey the enforcers.
Yeah, the restriction will apply to all residents except essential service providers and duly accredited election officials.
So let's inform Nigerians that it's from 6 a.m. based upon police that will enforce the law. So tomorrow from 6 a.m.
You can do that, but we will just notify them of all
the. So you make a choice.
They don't make up their mind. I mean, as a law person, you know what you choose, which one you think applies to you, legally speaking. But we've seen this directive from police, but we're only hoping that they will be civil about all of these things, knowing that there will be persons who are not essential service providers, who have emergencies, who need to attend to certain things. So it's area council elections. And also, maybe we should, you're advocating that we should have a look at this because we do it generally for elections. So we should not shouldn't keep highlighting election as a major industry. It's not, you know. But all right, we'll go to break. We'll have two major matters. We'll get your perspective on the Electoral Act, and maybe the budget as well, this narrative coming through from the coordinating minister of the economy. But don't go away, we will be right back. All right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Mr. Bani, the president has since assented to this Electoral Bill 2026. Now, law.
Yes.
A few things have changed. But of course, you know the response of Nigerians about this, how many of them are not happy with it. The ADC, for instance, criticized the president sharply about all of these things. They think this is an opportunity for them to mobilize Nigerians and go out there and, as they say, do the needful. But in terms of the narratives that what Nigerians actually wanted and what the Senate did, were you able to make the distinction? What do you think of it?
Historically, we must place this matter in context. You know, remember there was 2022 Act. Then there was an interpretation of the Supreme Court as to the provision, especially on this issue of electronic transmission. the Supreme Court was of the view that even though it was in a guideline, a guideline cannot in any way supersede the statutory provision that didn't mention IREF, didn't mention electronic transmission. And so for that purpose, immediately they were sworn in. I mean, the politicians, the members of the National Assembly started to take a second look in order to fill the gap, because there was a gap. There was no statutory mention of those two issues that would have sorted out the electoral dispute problem in court. So they say, what do we do? Collated information from the civil society, Nigerian stakeholders all made an input, and they were saying, look, let's go electronic in terms of transmission, because the problem has always been between the polling unit and the collection center. Things change. And how do we ensure transparency? How do we ensure participatory governance, that the people will see the result as they have already cast it at the polling unit? So eventually they arrive at there is going to be electronic transmission in the law. IREF must be mentioned. But again, when eventually the law has emerged, what is the provision? The Senate said, look, we must take into cognizance issue of operational difficulties. It is called force majeure in contract, unexpected. And that if you don't, then you are forgetting what happened in 2023, where issue of glitch was mentioned. So that the operational realities must be taken into consideration. We're all happy to go with electronic transmission, but we must also look at issue of infrastructural constraints, that if it does occur, then there must be a fallback option. That is where Nigerians say, look, let's go electronic all the way. Because issue of human interference is what has actually not helped Nigeria. So let's have electronic determine all that. So that is the argument. But eventually, we met halfway. Meeting halfway means that those two things that were not in the statute is now in the statute. But the only problem is that in case there is what they call communication failure, which I still feel that should be defined properly, then there will be a fallback option of EC8 form. But in any case, even the electronic transmission, the IREF does not collate. IREF does not collate. Everything still has to be done manually. But the only thing that happens is in case there is discrepancy between what you are doing manually and what is already electronically recorded, you now prefer that, because that is done immediately election was, So that's been the issue. So for me, we now have to look at INEC. We have to look at the judiciary, because these are the institutions now that can give some level of clarification to any ambiguity whatsoever that people are now pointing out. So my thinking is, issue of deficiency of trust, with the institution is actually what made Nigerians to be agitating, that we don't want it with any proviso, because the exception has always been the rule in Nigeria. So why don't we leave out exception and go for the real thing? But as I said earlier, the senators are saying, the members of the House are saying, we must also recognize issue of infrastructural constraints.
A few issues that you raised there, yes, which we will look at. But let me go back just a little bit on this, that Supreme Court bit which you highlighted, because it appears to go under the radar. But, I mean, we know that the Parent Act, that's the Electoral Act, empowers the Commission to make rules. And rules made as such have the force of law as the parent law. So what is this narrative, this impression that people have that laws that are delegated must be incorporated into the parent law? Because they also say, look, after all, the Constitution empowers the CJN to also make certain laws of which they abide by, and that principle stands. So many don't understand what the Supreme Court and why they had to go the way they did.
You must take into cognizance the argument before INEC was left with the discretionary power to now make the rules that will guide the mode of transfer or transmission. Remember that the argument then in the 9th Assembly was that, look, Nigeria has a network issue, we have no total coverage, and that if we put it in the law book, it will create a problem. Why don't we leave INEC with the responsibility of doing that? I agree that the law gives INEC the power to issue guidelines, which is what they did.
Yeah.
But A lot has been written by scholars on this issue whether the Supreme Court was right in saying that the guideline of INEC does not constitute, law that should be obeyed, right? Waiting for the statutory enactment. Well, I say others also will tell you that if the lawmakers had wanted electronic transmission, they should put it there. That is another. I'm only putting perspectives now. I'm not. There are those who say, look, they have given power to INEC. That is a discretionary power. But the INEC that was given the power now came to court and was not singing a different tune. INEC came. INEC was one that enacted the guidelines, is it not? But when there was this glitch, what was INEC defense in the court? INEC was now saying, look, we ran into a problem. We ran into it's a discretionary power given to us. We enacted it. We agreed. But along the line, we had a problem with the system. That was INEC defense. Are you following me? If the INEC had come forward and said, look, yes, we messed up.
No, Mr. Barney, let's also put it in context. I hear you. Okay. I understand that. Let's also put it in context. This same INEC appeared on different media houses, severally here. Their ICT department, the spokespersons, all of them thumped their chest. They demonstrated to us here.
I know now. That's before the election. Before the election.
We can do this.
Yes.
And of course, we know how it went with the National Assembly elections.
That's right.
We know what transpired.
That's right.
And then, we can't deceive people to say, okay, for the presidential, then there was a hitch. They never came to explain to people what was that hitch, because they have they have experts in this country who will tell you on your face that, look, what they're saying was not true, there was a hitch, it was just clear manipulation, even though they argued differently in court. And so all of those reasons were not tenable.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Before the court, the same INEC now that did all that you have just mentioned came and was now singing a different tone entirely. And so it was a discretionary power. So the court now felt, look, if the lawmakers had wanted it, they should have inserted it. Now, because of the fact that it was not inserted and you now left it in the hands, the same INEC now came and said it was something that was discretionary. We are sorry, there was a glitch. So that is where we are now. We now say, can we put it in the law book? Now, as I speak to you, issue of transmission now is in the law book. It forms part of the legal framework that will govern the election of 2027. IREF is not mentioned. The only problem is the proviso that people are contesting.
Does IREF being mentioned make it tenable before the courts? IREF is still not a coalition point.
Yes, it is not, but it enhances transparency.
It didn't cure the ill that
but it enhances transparency. If there is any dispute between what you have physically and what is electronically recorded, then it makes you know, this one is the first one that was done at the polling unit.
That's the question you asked the other day.
I would rather prefer, look, it is for clarity to be done by judiciary and INEC.
And that's the question I
are you following me? The lawmakers have made their law, but we now have to give clarity to it.
Mr. Obani, and that's basically where I said, because when you speak with CSOs, clearly they're very disappointed.
Yes.
But I've been trying to say that, look, I still see a room here, and it doesn't seem that there is clarity. Should there be a dispute? Because I beg your pardon, lawmakers have said that should there be a problem, we'll revert to the ECATA. Now, what they haven't said is if there is a problem, and then somehow, they reverted to the ECATA, but somehow the problem clarifies, is resolved before anything, and then all of a sudden people find out that, hold on, what was sent via the IREF portal does the ECHA sent via the IREF portal is different from the ECHA that we're looking at here. Maybe as another collation center. Which one of these ECHAs will be the valid ECHA? For me, there doesn't seem to be clarity on that in the law. And I'm still saying that, look, it does appear that we need to pressure INEC to put it in its guidelines.
God bless you.
That it should now be, but some people will say, what force of law does the guideline now have?
The force of law is that IREF is already in the law.
Yes, IREF is in the law, but, if INEC guidelines were, discarded the last time, and it was of no consequence, so to speak, what then do we have now that says that it is what is on the IREV that will be the thing that we need to go with? Should there be a disparity between what is transmitted and what the physical copy says?
There shouldn't be any disparity at all.
There shouldn't be. We know there shouldn't be, but we know that sometimes
there are copies, though. This result has several copies, counterparts. The political party agent has a copy. The security agents also will be given a copy. The presiding officer has a copy. Sometimes a copy must be also, you paste a copy at the polling unit where that result is announced, right? Then the presiding officer now goes to the collection center with his own copy, which he hands over to the collection officers there. Now, I have watched it. I have entered into collection center where it's been done. I as an agent, I acted once and as an agent, so I asked all the polling unit agent to give me their results. Mm-hmm. So when you are calculating based on word. If it's word A now, there are up to 3 maybe polling units that makes up a word. Mm-hmm. I look at the result of that polling unit A, polling unit B, polling unit C, and calculate it, tabulate it. And then if it tallies with the word result, then I'll sign as an agent who's representing some. I follow me. I've seen it work. I've seen collection officers when they are also collating. They are looking at what is in IREF to see whether there is there is corroboration. They look at it, and if there is any inconsistency, to my own take, the one that has already been uploaded immediately after election to supersede one, unless there is miscalculation. Because let me just tell you, there can be a miscalculation even by the presiding officer. So you are human beings.
Dr. Obani, I'm smiling because
I don't know why you should smile.
There's something that the president said.
What did he say?
That the computers are not the things that announce the results.
They don't.
That it's a human being that does it.
No, but that is
and
true.
We have been told about how agents sometimes collude.
Okay.
Some agents surrender their what they call that now? Their agency, their responsibility. They've sold it.
Very unfortunate.
And so they say these errors. I mean, we saw in the last elections, citizens actively took pictures of what happened in their polling units. And much later, when this when this glitch was over, and they went on the IREV, they saw miraculous figures. There were huge disparities between what was on the polling units that residents had monitored and what was pasted on the IREV. So this sometimes is the, how do I put it now, the abracadabra. That a lot of people
are now saying, can we run away from it? Let me tell you, we have sorted the issue of accreditation. Problem used to be on the issue of overvoting and
overvoting, yes.
Beautiful. The Beavers has solved that problem.
Indeed.
So we are now at the collation level. And we're saying, with what has happened so far, there has been some level of movement, but not as expected. What we now need to do now is to look at those institutions now that will now give clarity to what has been passed into law. And that is where INEC comes in. The man that is there is a sound senior advocate of Nigeria. And there's so much, expectation from Nigeria on him that he should do the right thing.
The poor man.
No,
maybe he's not so poor.
What we're saying is that clarity must be given to where there is ambiguity. Then the judiciary also must help the country. Because there is intention. That is what we call mischief. What did we want to cure by going back to the law in order to change? The intention is to ensure transparency, more credibility to the entire process, and then make sure that people will have confidence in our electoral process. So the judiciary now will now say, in the light of this expectation, what am I supposed to interpret? There are modes of interpretation. Issue of literal, issue of golden rule, issue of mischief. You look at mischief, what was the mischief that wanted to cure? Have we cured it? And what do we do in interpreting in order to give purposeful, explanation to what has happened? So my thinking, let's begin to pay attention to 2 institutions now that will really help to bring sanity with what has been.
So that will be INEC and the judiciary. I'm just a little curious. I mean, some people say after the National Assembly has refused to do what it ought to have done, because you were saying that there was a meeting halfway. Some people say no. There was no meeting halfway. This was shoved down the throat of because a lot of people said the House already gave Nigerians what it wanted.
But the same House came back and...
But the same House came back under another influence.
Yeah, and I agree that this is...
Under the influence of...
Influence of who?
Under the influence of the Senate.
Whoever alleges was who?
Under the influence of the Senate. Because they understand that when they come for harmonization, it's one that must be taken. It's either that of the House is taken or that of the Senate. And people have said what the Senate passed. It's not exactly what they wanted. They wanted that of the House. But somehow... the minority in the Senate, if we're talking about numbers, because the House is 360 members, the Senate is 109.
Yes.
Would have thought that would have gone.
15 members said no, they wanted it, then 55 now said this is what is, in the public interest. Are you following me? Both people who are arguing that electronic transmission should be the first option. They all love Nigeria. And that is the truth. And I love the way they insisted, and said, look, let's do it this way. We can go electronic all the way. We've seen it happen in other nations and all that. They all mean well. But the senators are also saying, look, can we also recognize some deficiencies in the system that if you don't take it into consideration, then you are not being realistic. So they also mean well. But it's for us now to
Do you think it's an age thing, though? I'm just a little curious.
Well,
maybe elderly people don't have
but you know that most of them, of course, for you to be a senator, you know the age, the age bracket.
Curious.
So they are like fathers. Whatever you are seeing sitting down, I mean, they see sitting down. You can't even see standing up. So they are saying, look, we recognize some institutional constraints. There are issues. Can we take that into consideration? So if there is any problem, we can have a fallback. That is that position. But I'm saying, let's look at two institutions that can really correct it, ambiguity, and remove problem. And that is the INEC and judiciary. That is my take. The lawmakers have done their own. Can we as citizens also? The bulwark also, the citizens who are enlightened. Can the political parties engage in more of education, enlightenment, getting agents that are educated and later that know what, that cannot be compromised? It's possible.
Well, you've heard the ADC say. The ADC says that they affirm in the strongest and clearest possible terms that they are ready, willing and prepared to defend the sanctity of Nigeria's democracy using every constitutional and lawful means available to them. They say they will mobilize Nigerians towards vigilance, towards lawful participation, and towards unity in defense of their constitutional rights, because they believe that that is not what the ruling party wants.
I don't think the ruling party will not want an integrity in the electoral process.
That's what they said. They said the president has signed the death warrant on credible elections, and by so doing, set Nigeria's democracy back by several decades.
Yeah, opposition will look at it from that angle. And if they don't do that, of course, they're not doing their distance. But the ruling party also, we said, look, what they have done is in public interest. That they want a situation where we take into cognizance some of our constraints in the system that you don't take into consideration, you're not being truthful. That's their own position too. But at the end, the vigilance on the part of Nigerians is key. Institutional integrity, INEC and judiciary. They will have a problem solved. That's my thinking. But we'll get there.
Are you sure we'll get there?
We will.
Okay. Let me take you back to 2015 or 2013, thereabout. We know the ACN at the time, there were several publications. Let's have a look at some of these things. If we could also have it behind us so Mr. Bane can see a little clearer what they were asking at that time.
Okay.
So they wanted, if you could just, look at this.
Yes.
So look behind you. Nigeria must use electronic voting in 2015. ACN tells FG. ACN wants electronic voting in 2015. These same arguments we were making now, they made it at that time.
They made it, that's correct.
They said they wanted electronic.
Even voting, not even transmission.
So they wanted a more severe, more than we're even asking for now.
That's correct.
They said they didn't want judiciary being the one to determine who wins, who loses.
Correct.
So all these arguments we're making now, they made it at that time.
And this is what they are also saying, even in this new article. They are saying that, look, we agree with transmission. They agree with IREF. But the only thing is that, can we also recognize some deficiencies in the system in case it does occur?
The same card, the same equipment, BVAS and those equipments that work for accreditation and those results, are they not telling? Because, INEC has clearly told us several times, if it doesn't upload where you are, as soon as you move to a location where there's network, it uploads automatically because you're already in the system. So you can't come and tell us there's no
what you have just said now, makes a lot of sense. The Senate President said it. He said, even if you are talking about uploading both offline and online can be done at the polling unit. When you get to where there is network, if there is no networking where you are in the polling unit, the thing will.
So that's what people say. He's contradicting himself. Exactly. Why the proviso? Why? It's contradictory.
No, what the proviso is that doing it real time may not be the right language, because at that point where there is no network, then it cannot drop. It's not going to be real time anymore. But when you upload it, it will certainly drop later where there is network. But my take is that the INEC man that is doing collation must look at what is on IREF in order to corroborate what he's doing physically. It's important because it enhances transparency, it enhances credibility, and Nigerians are also in their phone are watching what is also on IREF, right? We all must be vigilant. That is my own watchword. Everyone must be vigilant in order to ensure credibility in the electoral process, because the way we elect leaders matter.
So is this supposed to, this will apply to, wait, is it not going to, is it too early? Or will it apply to this era council elections?
The election they are conducting tomorrow will have the legal framework of 2026 Act.
So
it's already, the law is already...
They can't say it's too soon for us.
That's why we should now use this FCT election tomorrow to now gauge what will happen, because already the law is in place, right?
Mr. Modobani, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me,
and
thank you for seeing you once again for a long time, my brother.
Yes, we have to thank God for that.
God is...
Movements, restriction or not, we have to just relax and enjoy ourselves.
I agree with you.
But maybe not in the gardens, because there will be no movement today. But we'll find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, they always say.
You're not taking the police one?
Which police?
Police one is from tomorrow now.
I take the police.
I'm on essential service. I plead my essential service, whatever it is. Well, that's it today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain. So goodbye.
Can't believe it's Friday already. But whatever it is you do, please, if you're in the FCT and you have a voter's card, go out and express yourself. Go out and exercise your franchise. It's your right and a duty as well. Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf, wishing you a productive Friday.